uses and techniques of local anesthesia. Okay, so there are specific techniques by which it is administered. Okay, in the classification we have seen that the certain agents are surface anesthetics. Okay, certain have to be given by injectable manner. Okay, so there are specific techniques by which it is supposed to be administered, because here the application of the drug is supposed to be done in a restricted area. Okay, so a restricted area is involved over here, or it is anesthetized after the application of a local anesthetic. Over here whole body is not involved. Okay, so depending upon the drug which is used, or the procedure which is required, or the area of the body in which you need to carry out the procedure, there are different manners in which you can administer or apply this particular local anesthetic drug. Okay, so there are altogether 6 techniques by which these local anesthetic can be applied or administered. Okay, so as we look into the details of these individual techniques, we shall also see what are the uses. Okay, so for what purpose these individual techniques are used, and at the same time we will also see the most commonly utilized drug in for that particular purpose. Okay, so to start with the first one, that is the surface anesthesia. Okay, so surface anesthesia. Now over here, as the name implies, surface anesthesia, meaning here you are applying the drug topically. So here the anesthesia is produced after topical application of the surface anesthetic to either the mucous membrane or the abraded skin. Okay, intact skin cannot be anesthetized by all the local anesthetic we have seen. Okay, so it is generally applied either to the mucous membrane or to the abraded skin. So this picture indicates the several types of anesthesia which I have taken from the internet. Okay, so here this is where you are applying your topical anesthetic. Okay, so over your skin, or the rather than abraded skin or mucous membrane, you are applying your local anesthetic. Okay, just like you apply some ointment or something like that. So you apply it over here, and in whichever area you are applying, that particular area will get anesthetized. That is, only the superficial layers, deeper layers will not be involved in this type of anesthesia. Only the superficial layers will get anesthetized. Anesthetized meaning there will be loss of all the sensory perception, and pain is the one which is affected the most, as we have seen in the actions. Okay, so over here anesthesia is produced, that is, the sensory functions are abolished over here, but there is no loss of motor function. That is, motor neurons supplying to this area. Supposing you are applying your local anesthetic in this region, so if at all there is any motor neuron coming to that particular area, that is not getting affected. Only the sensory perception is affected. Okay, mainly the pain is getting affected in this particular restricted area where you are applying it. Now the onset of action, okay, that is after how long the anesthesia will begin, and the duration for which the anesthesia will last, this will depend upon the site where you are applying the drug or the local anesthetic. Okay, the drug which you are selecting for the purpose, then the concentration in which this drug is administered or applied rather, and the form in which you are applying, that is, what particular formulation you are using to apply that particular local anesthetic or the surface anesthetic. Okay, so here one example is given, lidocaine. It is used in the form of spray. So this is the form in which this lidocaine is applied in the throat. Okay, so when it is applied in the form of spray to the throat, the action it will start within 2 to 5 minutes. Okay, so you can see that very less time is required for it to start producing its action. Okay, and this action will last for around about 30 to 45 minutes. It will produce the anesthesia in that particular area, that is throat, wherein you are applied this lidocaine in the form of spray. Now in the actions we had also seen that a vasoconstrictor can be added to local anesthetic, right? ADR is generally added to the local anesthetic. In a specific proportion it is added. Okay, so when this vasoconstrictor is added, generally it produces vasoconstriction in that area, and it prevents the systemic absorption of your local anesthetic which you have applied in that area, or which you have administered in a particular area. So it will prevent the absorption of your local anesthetic into the systemic circulation. This is what we have seen under the action. So because of this, it will make your drug act for a longer period of time. That is, it will allow your local anesthetic to remain in the area of application for a longer period of time, so that it is not absorbed into systemic circulation, because we do not want your drug to get absorbed into systemic circulation. It is not supposed to act systemically, but it is supposed to act locally over here wherever it is applied or injected. Okay, so ADR makes the drug longer acting. But in case if you add ADR to a surface anesthetic, it will not affect the duration of topical anesthesia. It doesn't prolong the action even if you add ADR over here. Okay, for in case of surface anesthesia. Now coming to the absorption. Okay, absorption of these local anesthetics which are applied. Now no doubt we are applying them topically. Okay, but still it is applied topically to a mucous membrane or a abraded skin. So naturally there will be blood supply in this particular region. Okay, so there will be capillary or blood supply in this region. So ultimately the drug may get absorbed into systemic circulation to certain extent. Now this absorption, the extent of absorption again will depend upon the type of agent which you are using. Say supposing if in case here one or two examples are quoted over here. So absorption of the soluble local anesthetics. Okay, so soluble type of local anesthetics from the mucous membrane is quite rapid. Say for example lidocaine and tetracaine. Okay, these are soluble local anesthetics. Okay, so here whenever these local anesthetics, lidocaine and tetracaine, these are sprayed in the throat or tracheobronchial tree. Now when they are sprayed in these particular regions, this is actually a topical application. Though these are internal regions, your application becomes a topical one. Okay, but still when these drugs are administered in the form of spray in these regions, throat or tracheobronchial tree, from these regions also these drugs can be effectively absorbed into the systemic circulation, so that the blood concentrations which are attained after this type of application, these are similar to that which is attained after IV administration of these drugs. Okay, you are not administering the drug by IV route. Okay, you are applying it in the form of a spray in specific region, but from here also the absorption is quite significant, so that the blood concentrations will be very high, similar to that as if you have administered it in the form of IV injection. Okay, so toxicities can take place. Okay, so dose adjustments may be required over here when you are administering the drug in the sensitive regions from which it can be absorbed very easily. Okay. Now coming to the anesthesia of an intact skin, as we have seen earlier that intact skin cannot be anesthetized by the local anesthetic, but there is one preparation, eutectic lidocaine prelocaine. We have seen what it is. Okay, so this is the only preparation which can anesthetize the intact skin. Okay, so in case of intact skin has to be anesthetized, then this particular mixture, eutectic mixture, is supposed to be used. Otherwise local anesthetics can anesthetize the mucous membrane or the abraded skin, not the intact skin, but this one can. Then coming to the second technique, that is the infiltration anesthesia. Now over here dilute solutions of your local anesthetic is infiltrated under the skin. Okay, so here injections will be required. Okay, so with the help of a needle, a little bit interior penetration. Okay, so generally subcutaneously, just beneath the skin, in the superficial layers itself, the drug is injected. Though it is injected, this injection is a local one. You are not injecting the drug by parenteral route. You cannot call this a parenteral route. It is a local route because you are just injecting it just beneath the skin over here. This is the technique where the infiltration anesthesia is given. Just this is your skin, just beneath that the drug is injected. So it will block all the sensory nerve endings in the area where you have injected it. Supposing if you are injecting at this point, so if there are any sensory nerve endings, obviously it will be present because those sensory nerve endings are present throughout your body, okay, over the skin. So here the sensory nerve endings in this area where you are infiltrating, infiltration meaning penetration in the deeper layers. Okay, so infiltration when it is done in a particular area, in this restricted area, whichever sensory nerves are coming or supplying in this region, which are sensing maybe the sense of touch or sense of pressure, sense of pain, all these sensory nerves will be blocked. And pain carrying sensory nerves are more sensitive, as we have seen under the actions. Okay, so pain carrying sensations will be blocked in this area where you are infiltrating your drug. Now again, the onset of action, it is immediate, even it is faster as compared to the topical application or surface anesthesia. Okay, so immediately drug will start producing its action once it is injected, and duration of action is shorter as compared to the nerve block, which is the next type of technique which is used. So when you compare this infiltration anesthesia with nerve block, the duration of action is little bit shorter. Okay, so here with examples, a few duration of action is given. Lidocaine 30 to 60 minutes is the duration of action. Bupivacaine 90 to 180 minutes. It is a longer acting agent. Okay, so its duration of action is little bit longer. Now coming to the uses of this infiltration anesthesia, it is used for minor operations like incisions. Supposing if there is a cut to be given in the skin, okay, if any incisions are supposed to be given for some minor procedures, supposing if excisions have to be done, say for example from this area some part has to be removed out, specifically tumors are removed. Okay, so that process is known, removal of certain part is known as excision. Or say hydrocele, hydrocele meaning accumulation of the fluid in the scrotum, okay, around the testis, fluid may get accumulated, so maybe for the removal of that. Okay, so it's again a minor procedure wherein only that anesthesia is given to the scrotum. Then herniorrhaphy, that is correction of the hernia. Hernia meaning there is misplacement of certain internal viscera, okay, maybe bulging out of the organs. Say commonly this occurs with your intestines, so they may bulge out of the wall which is protecting them or which is holding them in place. So for such minor procedures, okay, wherein the area to be anesthetized is small, okay, comparatively if the area to be anesthetized is smaller, in that case you are supposed to prefer this procedure of infiltration anesthesia. Now if you see the amount of local anesthetic which is required, so it is relatively larger as compared to the area which is supposed to be anesthetized. Okay, so a relatively larger anesthetic will be required over here. Okay, when you compare the area to be anesthetized, so larger amount of local anesthetic is required when you compare it with the other types of blocks, say conduction block. So amount of anesthetic required over here for this procedure will be a little larger, okay, keeping the area same. Okay. Again over here motor functions are not affected. Sensory neurons are getting affected in this area. Sensory perception is lost, but then motor function, wherever motor neurons are supplying, they are not getting affected by this particular application. Then coming to the third technique, that is conduction block. Okay, so as the name implies, conduction along a particular nerve or a nerve trunk is blocked by application of local anesthetic in the vicinity of that particular nerve trunk. Okay, so here a little bit deeper administration of your drug is done. Okay, and whichever nerve it is injected around, wherever that nerve is supplying to whichever area, that whole area will get anesthetized and paralyzed. Okay, anesthetized meaning sensory perceptions are lost, mainly the pain. Okay, and it is also paralyzed. Paralysis will take place of the muscles in that area. That means here both the sensory neurons are also affected and the motor neurons are also affected. In the first two techniques we have seen that only sensory perception is lost. Surface anesthesia and infiltration anesthesia, motor functions are not affected, but that is not the case with conduction block. Over here sensory neurons are also affected and the motor neurons are also affected. So wherever it is injected around a particular nerve, both the types of neurons in that particular neuron or the trunk, both are affected, sensory neuron as well as the motor neuron. Okay, now the choice of local anesthetics and the concentration, that will be determined by the duration of action which is required. That is, for how long you want the anesthesia to last. Say for example, lidocaine 1 to 2% concentration of solution is used over here. It has intermediate duration of action. Okay, but if you need the anesthesia to last for a little longer period, then bupivacaine can be used. Okay, because it's having a longer duration of action. Now in this conduction block, again it is of two types. Okay, first one is the field block and the second one is the nerve block. So there are two types of conduction block which can be carried out. Okay, so as you can see that the injections have to be given a little bit deeper, as I have told you over here, deeper inside the skin. Okay, so here in this technique you need to locate the neurons or the nerve trunks and you need to inject your local anesthetic in that particular area. Okay, so here local anesthetic is injected subcutaneously in such a way that all the neurons coming to this field. Okay, so here if your local anesthetic is being injected in this area, this entire field will get affected. Okay, so you are injecting here. So now these neurons are supplying these areas, right? So this entire field where these neurons are supplying, so all these neurons will get blocked. Okay, the conduction across all these neurons will get blocked. So if you can see that the area of involvement over here is little bit higher, isn't it? Okay, so here in case of topical application only that area was getting affected. Infiltration anesthesia also, wherever you are injecting, in that area the nerves were getting affected. But in case of field block, okay, so that field where these neurons are supplying, so all that area is getting affected. So over here a larger area can be anesthetized with comparatively a lesser amount of drug. When you compare this technique with infiltration anesthesia, if you use the same amount of drug over here, in this case also, okay, in case of infiltration and in case of field block, if you are using the same amount of drug, if you can compare the area which is anesthetized, it will be obviously larger in case of field block, because even though the drug is injected in this particular area, these neurons are supplying a larger area. So comparatively a larger area is getting anesthetized over here. So you require even a lesser amount of drug to anesthetize a larger area when you use the field block. Now the procedures which are carried out by this technique include herniorrhaphy, that is correction of the hernia, appendicectomy, that is removal of the appendix which may be inflamed, dental procedures, tooth extractions and all such procedures, scalp stitching. Okay, stitching in case if there is if you have met with some accident or something like that, so if stitching has to be done, so it can be anesthetized, or operations which can be done in the forearms, maybe in the arm or maybe in a restricted region of your leg. So you can find out the nerve which is supplying to that area and inject your local anesthetic over here, so that particular area will get anesthetized. Okay, so concentration, as I have told you, it can be same as that of infiltration anesthesia, but a lesser amount of drug. I am not talking about the amount of drug, this is the concentration. Okay, that is the percentage of your local anesthetic which is used is same as that of infiltration anesthesia, but here comparatively a lesser amount of drug is required to anesthetize a larger area. Then the next type of technique under conduction block is nerve block. Okay, now here the local anesthetic is injected around a nerve trunk or a plexus here where it is originating. Okay, so it is identified where it is originating, where the plexus or the trunk is originating, and the local anesthetic is injected in around that particular nerve trunk or a plexus. Okay, so wherever this nerve trunk or plexus is supplying, if you can see, the area where it is supplying is comparatively larger, right? Okay, so a larger field will be anesthetized over here. Okay, so here a still lesser amount of drug is required, so and a still larger area will be anesthetized when you compare with the field block or infiltration anesthesia, because you are targeting the origin of that nerve trunk or the plexus. So in whichever area distally, wherever it is supplying, all those areas will be anesthetized. Not only anesthesia, paralysis in that area also will be produced. That is, the motor function is also getting affected. Okay. Now over here an example is quoted of lidocaine. It can anesthetize the intercostal nerve within 3 minutes. Okay, but the bronchial plexus block, it takes 15 minutes. So it depends, the action of the drug also depends upon the type of nerve or the plexus which is involved, or the area where you are supposed to inject it. So certain areas may get anesthetized at a faster rate, certain areas may take a little bit longer. Okay, and if you can consider the duration of action, this lasts even longer as compared to field block or infiltration anesthesia. No doubt the area which is getting anesthetized is still larger, the duration of action is also longer, okay, and the anesthesia is more stronger comparative to these two types of anesthesia. Okay, coming to the specific type of nerve blocks which are performed. Okay, so a particular type of nerve is identified. Here a few examples of specific nerve trunk or plexus. The examples are given: lingual nerve or intercostal nerve, ulnar nerve, sciatic nerve, femoral nerve, okay, or bronchial plexus, trigeminal nerve, okay, the facial nerve, phrenic nerve, etc. So a specific type of nerve is identified, or the plexus is identified, and locations are fixed. So it is identified and your local anesthetic is injected around that particular nerve or plexus. So wherever it is supplying, it is getting anesthetized. So depending upon what your procedure is, which area you need to anesthetize, accordingly you should select appropriate nerve or appropriate nerve trunk or plexus and inject your local anesthetic. So procedures which can be carried out, these include tooth extraction, operations specifically on the eye or on the limbs, okay, upper limb or lower limb, or maybe abdominal wall, superficial procedures if supposed to be carried out, fracture setting specifically in the limbs, trauma to the ribs if it has occurred, the neuralgias, okay, can also be controlled by injecting, pain can be controlled, persistent hiccups can also be controlled, okay, by anesthetizing the respiratory muscles. Okay, so now here the basic idea behind this nerve block is to abolish the pain sensation, that is, sensory perception should be lost actually. Okay, but as we have seen that not only the anesthesia but the paralysis of the muscles will also take place, that is, the motor paralysis will take place over here. Now in certain context it may be advantageous, and in certain cases it may be disadvantageous also. There are advantages of this motor paralysis which is taking place, or the paralysis of your skeletal muscles which is taking place. It is advantageous in certain condition and it is disadvantageous also. Now advantages, if you consider motor paralysis, meaning skeletal muscles will be relaxed. So whenever some minor surgeries are supposed to be carried out, when the skeletal muscles are relaxed, it is an advantage. Okay, so if the muscle tone is high, it becomes difficult to carry out these surgeries. Okay, so muscles need to be totally relaxed. We have seen this purpose under the skeletal muscle relaxant chapter. Okay, so that's why skeletal muscle relaxant sometimes are also given along with the general anesthesia to relax the body muscles. Okay, that is the skeletal muscles, to make it easier for the surgeries to be carried out. So in case of minor surgeries, if it is supposed to be carried out, the muscle relaxation becomes advantageous. Okay, but supposing if it is interfering with your breathing, because your skeletal muscles are also acting as the respiratory muscles, right? Intercostal muscles, diaphragm, these are all skeletal muscles. So if these muscles which are involved in the breathing, if they are getting paralyzed, then obviously it will interfere with the breathing of the person. So that is not advisable, right? So it will affect the breathing of the person. So breathing difficulty will also be precipitated over here. Apart from that, post-operatively, the person may not be able to walk appropriately because the muscles will become weak because they are paralyzed. Okay, so also if you are using the drug during the labor to control the labor pain, so in that case the participation of the lady or the woman during the labor or during the childbirth, so that becomes difficult over here, and sometimes postural hypotension may also be precipitated. Okay, so these are the disadvantage, because skeletal muscles will get relaxed, blood, that is venous return, blood coming back to your heart will be reduced, because skeletal muscle pump is involved in the venous return. It adds to the blood which is coming back to your heart. So in that case, by producing skeletal muscle relaxation, the blood which is coming back to the heart will be reduced and hypotension may be reduced, that is decrease in the blood pressure will be precipitated. Now before going to the next technique, that is spinal anesthesia, I'll just brief over what the spinal cord is and location. This you all have already studied in your anatomy in the nervous system. Okay, so this is a picture of the picture showing the spinal cord and the nerves which are originating. Okay, spinal nerves which are originating and the protective layers of your spinal cord. Okay, there are three protective layers, right? They are known as meninges. Okay, pia mater, which is found interiorly. Then comes the arachnoid mater, which is a middle layer, and the outer layer is known as the dura mater. So there is three layers which are protecting your CNS. Your brain and your spinal cord is protected by these meninges which form the protective layer. In between these layers there is specific spaces which are present and they are filled with say cerebrospinal fluid or fat filled, so that they provide protection to your spinal cord and the brain. So we will focus here more on the spinal cord. Okay, now let us see in brief what exactly or how the nerves are originating from this spinal cord. So this is your spinal cord. So from here the nerve roots will be originating and they will be coming out from your spinal cord. This is actual picture of your spinal cord which is showing the nerves which are originating. Here the names of the nerves are also given over here. If you can see ulnar nerve, if you can remember, under the conduction block, ulnar nerve, okay, then sciatic nerve. So over there these nerves are specifically identified and the drug is injected in the vicinity of these nerves. Okay, now if you consider the spinal anesthesia, so here as the name implies, the anesthetic is injected around your spinal cord, in the specific regions around your spinal cord. Especially it is done in between these protective layers. So your drug which is injected around the spinal cord, this drug will be taken up by these nerve roots which are originating or which are coming from your spinal cord. So they will take up this local anesthetic and they will get anesthetized. Okay, so this is to do with the brief introduction with your spinal cord and spinal nerves. Okay, so if you can see over here, these are the cervical nerves, these are the thoracic nerves, okay, these are the lumbar ones and these are the sacral ones. Okay, here this is a picture of the transverse section of your spinal cord. So this is your spinal cord. Okay, so from here are originating your nerves. So this is your nerve root which is traveling out. This is your vertebra. Okay, so one of the vertebra is shown over here. So from here your nerve roots are coming out of your spinal cord. So it is leaving your vertebral column and then it is supplying towards the periphery. And if you can see the protective layer, these are the dura mater and arachnoid mater over here. Okay, and this is the epidural space. Epidural space meaning the space outside the dura mater. Dura mater is the outermost layer. Okay, pia mater is the innermost layer. Okay, so this is the arachnoid and the dura mater. Okay, this one. Okay, and this is the subarachnoid space. Okay, here this one. In the subarachnoid space is between the pia mater and the arachnoid mater. Okay, so in between that space which is there, arachnoid space, subarachnoid space it is known as. So this space is filled with the CSF, that is cerebrospinal fluid, which gives the protection, cushioning to your spinal cord which is present over here. Okay, and this epidural space, that is outside your dura mater, it contains the fat and the blood vessels. Okay, so basically here you need to remember these two spaces, subarachnoid space and the epidural space, for the next two type of techniques which we are going to cover. Okay, so coming to the next technique, that is spinal anesthesia. Okay, so here the local anesthetic is injected in the subarachnoid space. So we have seen what a subarachnoid space is. So here the subarachnoid space specifically in between L2 and L3. Okay, now L2 and L3 meaning the lumbar vertebrae. In between the two, second lumbar vertebrae and the third lumbar vertebrae, or in between L3 and L4, that is the third and the fourth lumbar vertebrae. So in between there somewhere the injection is given, okay, so that your needle should penetrate into the subarachnoid region. Okay, so here the injections will be given over here. This is showing the spinal anesthesia. So you need to inject it in such a way that the local anesthetic will reach in the subarachnoid space. Okay, so if you can imagine, you are giving the injections from the exterior, you are not able to see which is the layer. So this particular injection has to be given very skillfully. There are specialized people who are available. Anesthetist only can give these injections very carefully and very precisely. Okay, so they are trained for this. Normally when an operation is supposed to be carried out, okay, whenever spinal anesthesia or epidural anesthesia is supposed to be given, okay, generally during surgeries, the doctors call these anesthetists. Okay, there are specialized courses which are available. So they are trained with this techniques. So the doctors, they call upon these anesthetists. So they actually are the one who will administer these anesthesia, because here the skillful administration is supposed to be done to inject these drug in a specific region, that is only in the subarachnoid space. So over here, as we have seen that the nerves which are present in these areas, okay, so once the injection is given, your drug will reach here, okay, in the subarachnoid space. So from this area, whichever nerve roots are passing from this region, all those nerve roots, this area is known as cauda equina. Okay, here this one, cauda equina, this is the part. So here in this region between L2 and L3 or L3 and L4, here is your injection which you are giving in the subarachnoid space. Okay, so here whichever nerve roots are passing through this cauda equina, so all those nerve roots will take up your local anesthetic, and wherever those nerves are passing or wherever they are supplying to whichever area, so all those areas will get anesthetized. So basically these nerves which are found in this region they are supplying the lower abdomen and the hind limbs, that is your lower limb. So lower abdomen and your lower limbs, that is your legs, will get anesthetized and paralyzed, meaning pain sensation is also abolished and the motor function is also abolished. When these injections are given, it is given making the person to sit upright position. Okay, so injection is given, and immediately once the injection is given, the person is not able to maintain the posture, that is, the person will not be able to sit upright. Immediately the person will fall backwards, because all the muscles in your lower abdomen, in your trunk region and in your legs, all the muscles are paralyzed, so that you will not be able to maintain your posture, and immediately you will lie back. Okay, so somebody will be holding you when this injection is being given, you will immediately fall backwards, so they will lie you down, okay, once this type of anesthesia is given. Okay, now the level of anesthesia, okay, that is the degree of anesthesia which is produced, it will depend upon the volume of the drug which is injected and the speed with which it is injected, okay, and the specific gravity of that drug and the posture of the patient, with what posture the patient that particular person is sitting in. Okay, so either the drug could be hyperbaric, that is pressure higher as that of the CSF, or it can be isobaric, that is the pressure could be the same as that of the CSF. Okay, so now once it is injected, appropriate injections has to be given in appropriate area, so you should select the appropriate drug, proper amount or the volume has to be injected, then the speed has to be controlled. Okay, so immediately once it is injected in the subarachnoid region, whatever nerve roots are passing in that region, all of them will rapidly take up the local anesthetic and they will retain it. Okay, so because your nerves are taking up your local anesthetic, okay, so the concentration of your local anesthetic which is there in the CSF when you inject it, so that concentration will immediately drop, because your nerve roots which are passing through that particular area, they have already taken up the local anesthetic. Okay, then now there are certain differences as to which type of areas are getting affected, or whether sensory is getting affected, motor functions are getting affected. Now if you compare over here, autonomic fibers, these are more sensitive as compared to the somatic fibers. Okay, so if you can see that the sympathetic block is little bit higher. Okay, so sympathetic outflow which is there, it will be blocked very effectively. So also if you compare this motor and the sensory fibers, the motor fibers are less sensitive as compared to the somatic sensory fibers. Okay, so sensory fibers are affected a little bit more. Okay, so motor paralysis is lower than the cutaneous analgesia. Analgesia meaning abolition of painful sensory neurons. Okay, so sensory perception like pain, okay, so that is affected more as compared to the motor paralysis which is produced. Okay, so also the sympathetic blockage is also of a greater degree which is produced by a local anesthetic. Then if you consider the duration of action, so that will depend upon the drug which you are selecting and the concentration of drug which you are giving. Okay, so depending upon the procedure which you are following, or what kind of operative procedures you need to carry out. So generally this is used for procedures which are carried out in the hind limbs or your lower limbs, or in the lower abdominal region. Upper region or thoracic regions cannot be anesthetized by this particular type of anesthesia. Now over here, addition of adrenaline, that will help in this particular type of technique. Okay, now supposing if you add adrenaline, which is a vasoconstrictor, in a concentration of 0.2 to 0.4 milligram, so this will result in prolongation of the local anesthesia to about 1/3. Okay, so there will be prolongation of action. Your local anesthetic will act for a longer period of time. Why? Because it will reduce the blood flow in this region. Because of the vasoconstrictor action, blood flow will be reduced, so your local anesthetic will not be removed from this area. So that is one mechanism by which it is prolonging the action. Apart from that, it is also producing the analgesia itself by acting through alpha 2 type of adrenergic receptor. It's an adrenergic drug, right? Adrenaline. So it will act on the alpha 2 receptor and it will result in the analgesic itself action itself also. Okay. Now coming to the amount of drug which is required. Okay. Now supposing if you are injecting the spinal local anesthetic to a pregnant woman. Okay. In case of late pregnancy, the amount of drug which is required is little bit less. That's because during pregnancy, you know that the fetus is growing in the uterus. Okay, so since the size is increased, it produces a little bit of compression onto these spaces. So the space, the subarachnoid space, is little bit compressed. So it is that the capacity is decreased because of this compression. So a little bit less amount of drug is required. Even the blood vessels in these regions will also be compressed, so that altogether the removal of your drug also will be low in case of later pregnancies. So if you are supposed to administer spinal anesthesia, okay, or anesthetic by spinal anesthesia to a pregnant lady who is in the later stages, say for example if you are administering this local anesthetic to carry out procedures like cesarean section, that is the operative kind of procedure for childbirth. If normal deliveries are not possible, cesarean section is done, okay, for the childbirth. So for that purposes, if you are injecting a local anesthetic by spinal route, in that case the dose or the amount of local anesthetic required will be a less, because of the compression of the blood vessels and the compression of this area where you are injecting your local anesthetic. So lower amount of drug is required during pregnancy. Okay, so coming to the procedures which can be carried out, generally those areas which are restricting to your lower limbs or the pelvic region, okay, or lower abdominal region are the areas where the operative procedures can be carried out. Okay, so conditions like, or the procedures like prostatectomy, removal of the prostate, fracture settings in the lower limbs specifically, or obstetric procedures, okay, relating to your childbirth, okay, cesarean sections and all. So all the procedures pertaining to the lower limbs or the lower extremities or the lower abdominal can be performed under this type of anesthesia. Now coming to the advantages over the general anesthesia. What are the advantages? It is quite safer. Okay, so entire body is not involved over here, main organs are not exposed, so it is quite safer. They produce good analgesia and muscle relaxation, okay, without the loss of consciousness of the person is maintained. Apart from this, if there is any cardiac complications or pulmonary complications or renal diseases or diabetes, so here the complication chances are less, okay, when a spinal anesthesia is used. Then coming to the complications of anesthesia. Now what are the problems which can be precipitated by spinal anesthesia? First problem is respiratory paralysis. This is rare to occur, but respiratory paralysis, yes, it can occur. Intercostal muscles may get paralyzed and the diaphragm only, the dome shaped skeletal muscle, okay, so that will maintain the respiration. Now actually why this respiratory paralysis is taking place? Because of the this hypotension and the ischemia of the respiratory center. These are the reasons why this paralysis is taking place. Okay, so now because of these paralysis of respiratory muscles, it will interfere with the normal physiology, like coughing may be affected or expectoration may become less effective, so that the pulmonary complications may be seen. So if anything is entering accidentally in your respiratory tract, because of coughing action, it will be removed out. Okay, so that is interfered with because your intercostal muscles may be paralyzed over here, or external abdominal muscles may be paralyzed. So you may not be able to cough appropriately. So pulmonary complications may be seen in such individuals in whom spinal anesthesia is used. Next complication is hypotension. Okay, hypotension we have already seen, it's because of the blockage of sympathetic outflow. It is resulting in vasodilatation. Vasoconstrictor action is abolished, because of which hypotension can be precipitated. Another reason is venous pooling of the blood will take place. That is, the venous return, that is the blood coming back to your heart, will be reduced. Okay, so because the blood coming back to the heart is reduced, it will again result in the reduced cardiac output, so fall in BP will be produced. Okay, now one more reason why venous return is reducing is, first of all, the vasoconstrictor action is abolished. Secondly, that is the skeletal muscle pump. Okay, skeletal muscles are paralyzed, so because of which the force which your skeletal muscles in your limbs are applying on your blood vessels, that is reduced. So because of this, the venous return is again reducing. This you all have already studied under your CVS chapter. There is a respiratory pump and there is a skeletal muscle pump which helps in the blood coming back to your heart. So that skeletal muscle pump is abolished over here, so that venous return is reduced. So that's how the hypotension may be produced. Apart from that, again sympathetic supply to your heart is reduced, so also venous return is low. So because of this, one more consequence is bradycardia, decrease in the heart rate is also seen. Okay, now how to overcome this problem, hypotension? Okay, what you can do is raise your feet. Okay, if you raise your foot, then the blood circulation, blood coming back to your heart will increase. Okay, so that can be overcome. Apart from that, sympathomimetic drugs can also be given. Okay, because over here sympathetic outflow is blocked. Okay, so that can be overcome by giving sympathomimetic agents. Okay, say for example ephedrine or mephentermine, which specifically acts on the veins. Okay, venous contraction will be produced over here, so blood returning back to your heart will be improved, and that's how hypotension can be combated. Okay, then next complication is headache. Headache is due to seepage of the CSF, so this can be prevented by using a smaller bore needle. Another complication is cauda equina syndrome. Over here the person loses the control over the bladder and the bowel sphincter, so that the urination or the passage of the feces may get affected. So this is produced because of the damage to the nerve roots which are found in this area. If you can remember, we had said that actually the nerve roots in this region are getting affected. So your bladder control may be getting affected to some extent. Passage of the stools may get affected. Okay, then septic meningitis, okay, maybe due to the infection in the meninges may take place. Apart from that, nausea and vomiting may be produced. This is because of the traction on the abdominal viscera, forceful pressure on the abdominal viscera. It results in the nausea and vomiting. So for this, pre-anesthetic medication may be used, so it will control nausea and vomiting. Coming to the contraindications to spinal anesthesia, when it is not supposed to be preferred. In case of the person already suffering from hypotension, because we have seen it's one of the complications, hypovolemia, if the fluid level is low, okay, blood level is low, then spinal anesthesia is not supposed to be used. Uncooperative or mentally ill persons also you are not supposed to use. Then in case of infants and children also it is not supposed to be used. Okay, control is difficult. Then vertebral abnormalities, in case if the person is suffering from complications like kyphosis or lordosis. Kyphosis meaning these are the deformities of your spinal cord, bulging out of your spinal, not spinal cord, the vertebral column. It will be bulging outwards over here. Lordosis meaning it will be bulging inwards. So the vertebral abnormalities, your space may not be appropriately located in such conditions. So spinal anesthesia is not supposed to be used. Next is sepsis may take place at the site where you are injecting. Then another complication is bleeding diathesis. Okay, that is bleeding tendencies may be increased over here, abnormal, because coagulability of the blood may get affected over here. Then raised intracranial pressure. intracranial pressure may also rise. So these are the contraindications to the use of the spinal anesthesia. Coming to the next technique, that is epidural anesthesia. Okay, so now here the injection is given in the epidural region. Okay, so we have seen what is the epidural region. Okay, so here injections are given in the epidural space. Okay, so where the CSF is found and through which again the nerve roots are passing through. Okay, so when you give the injection in this area, so these nerve roots again will take up your local anesthetic. Okay, so to some extent it will be restricted to epidural region, and sometimes it even crosses up to the subarachnoid spaces also. So this is the region where your anesthetic is actually applied. This is the epidural space. Okay, so this is your dura mater. Okay, so just outside that is the epidural space. So this is the area where your anesthetic is actually being applied. Okay, so here nerve roots will take up and they will maintain the anesthesia in these particular regions. Now again, which area you are injecting it, again depending upon that, epidural anesthesia is of 3 types. Again I have just shown you the picture. Okay, so this is the epidural space where the injection is supposed to be given over here. Okay, so the nerve roots will take up. Okay, now depending upon which region, which vertebrae you are injecting it into, it is again divided into 3 types. First one is the thoracic epidural anesthesia. So epidural region in the thoracic vertebrae is the site where you are supposed to give the injection. So somewhere around in the mid thoracic region the injection is given in the epidural region. Okay, so now over here relatively the area is narrow, so a smaller volume of drug may be needed over here. So generally areas which are getting affected is the middle and the lower thoracic region. Okay, so generally it is used for the pain relief following the thoracic and upper abdominal surgery. The next type is the lumbar epidural anesthesia. Okay, so lumbar epidural meaning here the injections are given in the lumbar region. Okay, so epidural space in the lumbar region. Okay, so now here relatively the space is little bit larger, so a little bit larger volume of drug is required. Okay, and the area anesthetized will be lower abdomen, pelvic region and the hind limb. So uses will be similar to that of spinal anesthesia. So same procedures can be carried out by lumbar epidural anesthesia. Then the next one is caudal region. So here the injections are given in the sacral canal. Okay, through the sacral hiatus. So here pelvic region and perineal regions will be mainly anesthetized, so that any kind of procedures in the pelvic region, say vaginal delivery or anorectal region, okay, rectal region, if some procedures operations are supposed to be carried out, or genitourinary operations can be carried out by this caudal epidural anesthesia. Drugs which are preferred over here again are lidocaine and bupivacaine. And coming to the last technique, that is intravenous regional anesthesia. Okay, so now here though your drug is administered locally, here intravenous injection of your anesthetic is supposed to be given. Now let us see what this technique is. Okay, so first of all over here you need to place a catheter through which you need to inject your drug. So you need to insert a catheter in your vein where you are supposed to inject your local anesthetic. So immediately you are not supposed to inject your local anesthetic. First what is done is, specifically this procedure is preferred for the conditions to be carried out on the limbs. Okay, specifically the upper limb in your hands or in the arms. Lower limb it is not preferred because the area is larger, drainage of blood becomes difficult. Because in this procedure, first of all you need to exsanguinate the limb. That is, you need to drain out all the blood from this limb. So what is done is, after placing this catheter, that limb is raised up and a elastic bandage is applied from distal to proximal end. Okay, so you can see that the bandage, elastic bandage is being wrapped over here around the hand. Okay, so after that elastic bandage is wrapped, whatever blood is present in this, the limb is also raised so that with gravity the blood will come out. Okay, plus the bandage is placed so that whatever blood is there, it will come out of the blood vessels. Next, what is done here, the tourniquet is applied, similar to that what you have used with your sphygmomanometer. So such a tourniquet is applied over here. Okay, so it is applied proximally. Here your bandage is applied, so just proximal to that the tourniquet is applied. So after this application of tourniquet, it is inflated above the arterial pressure. So if you can see, the pressure is given to which it is supposed to be inflated. So it should be inflated at a very high pressure. Following this inflation, now this inflation is supposed to be maintained and this elastic bandage is removed now. Okay, so now here blood from this region has been removed. So hand is lowered down and the elastic bandage is removed now, and after this you have to inject your local anesthetic in that catheter which you have placed. Okay, so slowly you are supposed to use a specific amount, 0.5% of lidocaine is used for this purpose. So slowly it is infused through the catheter and your drug is going directly into the veins. Mind it is intravenous injection, but is the blood present over here? No. You have removed out all the blood because over here tourniquet is present. Now blood is not coming to this region, but only your anesthetic is entering in your veins. So what will happen is, after this injection, what you can do is simply close this particular puncture you have done. Otherwise what will happen, this local anesthetic which you have placed inside the vein, it will start coming out. So you should cover it appropriately and then the procedures are supposed to be carried out in this region. So what will happen, whatever anesthetic you have injected over here in your vein, it will diffuse out into the tissues in this surrounding region and this hand will get anesthetized. So you can carry out the procedures. Now supposing if you can see over here, the person's some kind of procedure is being is already done now, and after this procedure is being carried out, this tourniquet is removed. Now one thing you should take care is, this tourniquet should not be removed immediately. Okay, it should be remain inflated for a particular period of time. Okay, it should be kept inflated for say 15 to 60 minutes to prevent the entry of your local anesthetic into your blood circulation. So you should keep it inflated. So generally lidocaine is used for this particular purpose. Bupivacaine is not supposed to be used because it is cardiotoxic. Okay, then the local anesthetic, no doubt it will enter to certain extent in your systemic circulation, but it is a very less amount which is entering. Bradycardia sometimes may occur because of this procedure. So generally orthopedic procedures are carried out under this type of anesthesia. So only upper limb is which is involved. Lower limb generally it is not preferred because lot of blood is there in your leg, so it becomes difficult to drain it out. Okay, so this is to do with the techniques, some of the important questions.